And now, okay, and now it's time to introduce, it's been a while, about 4 or 5 weeks, I think, since Ros is here. Would you welcome Ros, who does such a wonderful job leading the Australian Unity National School from New Zealand. Good to have you back, Ros.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, so keys to the kingdom. Here they are. Anyone want them? Anyone want the kingdom that they unlock? And what is that kingdom? The kingdom which we've actually just been exploring in that lovely meditation that Bill did with us. That place of absolute assurance, that place that we know every need is taken care of, that place of perpetual joy. So that's what these keys cannot unlock for us. And I doubt that I will say anything today that you haven't already heard. But what I'm proposing is that when we bring all these keys together, they unlock this place in our consciousness of ease and grace, that place where we can no longer be filled with anxiety. For me, this was huge. I came across this concept, the keys to the kingdom, in 2005 when we were first living in Maine. And we were doing this class. This class was offered to us, the keys of the 7-week class. And before we started this class, we had to sign a commitment form that we would say we were going to tithe of our time, our talent, and our treasure. So our time, it meant that we would be prepared to commit to, say, 90 minutes a day. So it's about 10% of waking hours. Some of us might not have quite that much, but anyway, that we would volunteer our time 4 hours a week. Normal working week, I guess, 40 hours, 10% of that, 4 hours a week. And that we would tithe our treasure, our money to the class during those 7 weeks. So it was a full-on commitment before we could even start the class. This was a class that would have been put together by David Owen Ritz, who's a New Thought minister in Florida. And he had done it as a 7-week series for his congregation. And then he had put it together into tapes and a booklet, The Keys to the Kingdom, which we were working with. And, for me, it was one of those, you've probably had these as well, one of those classes that had a very profound effect on me. And I believe it's true of what he says is that when you bring all these aspects, all these keys together and you're living them, applying them, embodying them, then your life becomes transformed. Mine did. So what I want to share with you then are these 6 keys, and I wish it wasn't 6 because, I know that you hear my accent and you think I'm saying something else. 5 plus 1, all right? 5 plus 1 keys. In Genesis, it talks about, we have that story of God creating the world in that many days, 5 plus 1. And then on the 7th day, he rested, right? So this is a similar thing, that those 2 numbers have mystical meanings for us. The first one, the 5 plus 1, the 6, symbolizes the work necessary to create something new. And the 7th indicates the creation cycle is complete and a new level of being has been attained. So let's have a look. We have the 6 keys. The first one is the key of commitment. The second one is the key of vision. The third one is truth. How do we look at that? The fourth one is circulation. The fifth one is forgiveness. And the sixth one is gratitude. So let's have a look at that first one, the first key of commitment. And I've already mentioned that we had to sign that commitment paper before we started the class. I want to tell you a story about Bill Murray. And I don't know whether you might know the Bill Murray that we see in films, but I'm not talking about him. I'm actually talking about Bill Murray, the mountaineer. And he's a Scottish gentleman. I'm not even sure if he's still alive, but he joined Edmund Hillary on the third expedition to Everest, which was when Sir Edmund actually summited Everest. But Ed Hillary had been twice before on this expedition and not managed to summit either of those times. And both times before he left, he had approached Bill Murray and said, we want you to come with us. We want you there as part of the team. We know, we respect you, we want you as part of the team. And Bill Murray couldn't commit. The first two times he was going, well, how much does it cost? And I don't know if you know anything about mountaineering, but it's a lot of money to do those expeditions. And he just couldn't see a way that he could get the money together to go on that expedition. But the third time, Ed Hillary goes back to him and says, you really need to come. We really want you there. And that third time, Bill Murray made this decision. He said, so how much for a ticket to get to Nepal or India, wherever they told him the price. And Bill Murray realized that if he put down that down payment, it took everything that he had, everything. He didn't know how on earth he was then going to pay for what it would cost to get all the provisions together and everything else they needed. But he made that commitment. And when he got back from that and had a wonderful time, he didn't summit, but had a wonderful trip and was so glad he went. He wrote a book called The Evidence of Things Not Seen. And in that book, he said, he wrote about commitment. Unless one is committed, there is hesitance, the chance to pull back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which has killed countless ideas and dreams, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no man could have dreamt would have come his way. From that one act of commitment, providence moves too. I love that. And in that book of his, The Evidence of Things Not Seen, he says the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. The absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. And that's going to be our theme, really, as we go through these keys. It was important for me when I was contemplating, hoping, wishing, and commitment's not those things, hoping, wishing, it's actually doing. But I was wanting to do a trip to Egypt. It was a unity trip. It was being organized and I wanted to go on it. And I mentioned it to my husband, John, and he said he wasn't interested because he'd already lived in Egypt for a period of time and he didn't need to go and see the pyramids and the Sphinx again, but I hadn't seen them. And I mentioned it to my daughter and she was kind of lukewarm. And so I didn't make a commitment. And then one day, long after when I should have actually made the commitment and put down the deposit, my daughter's on the phone. We're on the phone to my daughter and she says, well, are we going to Egypt then? And I go, yes. So I suddenly made the commitment right in that moment, and fear just washed through my body. Absolutely. It was like, oh, what have I done? I've made this commitment. But from that moment, having made it, I found, and each time that I needed to front up with money, the money was there. So there was that important thing about making that commitment. So it's much more than just giving something a try, isn't it? It's a wholehearted. It's not just adopting a new behavior until the going gets difficult, which is what David Owen Ritz said. It's a decision to a new way of living, no matter how daunting the obstacles may be. So it's total and absolute. Focus is your creative energy. So when obstacles arise, you have the faith and the momentum to overcome them. So just think, I'm going to pose a question. I just want you to just give it a moment's thought. Do you say yes to this or a no? Are you truly committed to realizing the presence of God in your life rather than simply attaining a material goal? So if you say yes to that, you have the first key. And we can go on to the second key. The second key is holding a vision of your highest potential. That kingdom of God, that field of infinite possibilities is already yours. However, how much of it are you claiming? How much of it are you choosing to experience? The vision you hold for your life is like a blueprint for your spirit. It's like you're saying to your spirit, yeah, this is what I will accept. This is what I want in my life. You will not rise higher. This is what David Owen Ritz says in this program. You will not rise higher than your vision. For those of you who were around when I last talked, how big is your frying pan? You might remember. How big can you take it? So you must hold a clear vision of your highest possibility in every area of your life. I often think about prosperity. It includes every aspect of your life. It's your health, it's your wealth, it's your finances, it's your relationships, it's your career or the work that you do. It's about your personal and spiritual growth. It's the whole area. So the vision you have has the power to help you live fully in expression, what you already are in potential. You think about it, the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. It's there in that as well. So can you see yourself enjoying God's lavish abundance in every area of your life? Yeah, if you can. That's the key to the second, that's the second key. So the third key that we have is the key of truth. It's an awareness of the truth of life. Just as light dispels darkness, truth reveals the non-reality of lack and limitation. Don't you love, I love that quote, what I call the denial affirmation from Charles Fillmore. The inexhaustible resource of spirit is equal to every demand. There is no reality in lack. Abundance is here and now manifest. That's the truth that he was talking about. So if there are circumstances in your life that seem to indicate lack, know that they have been created by false beliefs. And a false belief, David Owen Ritz talks about it this way. He says a false belief can be healed and transformed by an awareness of the truth, often instantaneously. I like that. Often instantaneously. You can kind of get it, you grasp it. And when I've been reading again, Florence Scovel Shin's book, the game of life and how to play it. She talks about that click, that moment that something goes, oh yeah, I got it. It's that, and something shifts, right? You get that. Oh, I get that. Calling silent unity. Something shifts often when you call them and they pray with you. Suddenly there's something happens. So something in you knows the truth of who you are and what you are, right? And what we're doing here is just saying, let's find a way to bring it forth. You don't need to know where the false beliefs come from. What this does, and when you hold that vision of the highest possibility, that is a power that motors you forward. So to find out if you've got this key, so do you know in your heart that God is the one and only source of your good? Have you accepted the truth that abundance is a here and now reality? Yeah, if you do, good. Then that's the key. And again, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. So the fourth key, circulation. Fourth key to the kingdom is living as a giver to life. Oh, when I first heard about this, it was in the form of a question: are you a giver or a taker to life? And it was like, I had to look at my life and think, actually, at that stage, I was a taker. I was always looking for, what's in it for me? What am I getting out of this? And I wasn't at all in that consciousness of being a giver. Whenever the offering, whenever I was asked to give, it was like, how little could I get away with, basically? What could I? Yeah, so I wasn't a giver. So David Owen Ritz says, givers move. He says, givers move is graceful concert with life. They move with a graceful concert with life because they've begun to discover their own spiritual nature, and by their giving have established themselves in the divine flow. I really love that idea of being in the divine flow. And think about circulation. The universe is like a closed circle, isn't it? A closed circuit. A bit like our bodies. We've got to have things circulating. So our breath helps the blood to circulate in the body. So if we think about the universe in that larger sense, what we're giving out comes back. And that lovely song that we listen to, that boomerang effect, what's coming out from us? What then is coming back? It's the law of circulation. You can do this, of course, opening up the channels in all sorts of ways. Of course, we can talk in unity, we might talk about tithing, but it's also, we can do it on physical level, about cleaning out drawers, cleaning out closets, wardrobes of things, garages, places where things are stored, maybe that we haven't used in a long time. I remember when we were doing this with David Owen Ritz, he writes in this section of like, if you haven't used something or worn something for 6 months, and I was thinking at that stage, we were living in Maine. Well, you had a very short window of summer. So you didn't wear your summer clothes for about 8 months of the year, and then you're lucky if you got to wear them for about 2. So I didn't quite go along with the 6-month thing and throw things out. But there is something in it, isn't it? Clear out things if you haven't been using them for a while. And I've been doing that again recently, and I'm surprised at how much I've managed to accumulate in the last while. Another way he said about opening up to allow the circulation, and this was something I did, was open an unexpected income account. I may have mentioned this before, but it was like, well, I'm not expecting unexpected income. And he says, well, you better start expecting it. And so I did open an unexpected income account. And shortly after doing that, I was offered some work, and I managed to find that I was getting enough money in there that I could travel to England to see my daughter. I loved it, an unexpected income account. So giving and receiving are not two separate things. They're aspects of the same thing. He says they're two sides of a coin. When you give of your good to others, you're actually giving to yourself, because your giving is also the measure of your acceptance. So ask yourself these questions to see if you've got this key. Do you have a joyful, loving attitude when called upon to give? Do you bless the money that flows through your life and share of your good unselfishly? Have you made room in your life for the good that you desire by releasing that which no longer serves you? If you answer yes to those questions, you have that fourth key. And again, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. So the fifth key is forgiveness, releasing the past through forgiveness. Unhealed pain and resentment stop us from fully experiencing the presence of God. I heard about forgiveness when I was first working with Edwin Gaines, 4 Spiritual Laws of Prosperity. And she said, all debt is to do with unforgiveness. And I went, oh, really? I'd never heard that. Had no idea. And I was in debt. And so I couldn't see any way out. And so I thought, well, I better try this forgiveness thing. And I did. I've worked at it over a period of time of forgiving every significant person in my life, whether I knew that I had any pain or resentment towards them or not. I kind of got the idea, and maybe she talked about it, that these resentments can be from time that you don't remember, from when you're a child, when you're a baby, things that have happened that you've got no idea, but somehow they're stored in your body. And then, of course, they will have an effect in your life. And so I did this forgiveness work. And you know something? My debt disappeared. I didn't do anything in the outer, anything different. I didn't budget. I didn't cut back, but the debt disappeared. So for me, it's really profound. And, you know, Charles Fillmore obviously thought it was, our co-founder of Unity, was a vitally important practice. He said he used to sit for half an hour every day and just go through his day and see if there was anybody that he'd put out of his heart that day. So it's a daily practice. David Owen Ritz talks about it as, you know, it's simply letting go. He said it's not forgetting. It's not about denying that whatever happened, happened, but it's simply letting it go. I know that Louise Hay did a lot of work in this area, and she had a CD that she'd made about forgiveness work, because she was saying, you know, any illness actually in the body, and particularly cancer, was to do with unhealed resentments, with resentments held in the body. And I had that CD, and there was a group of recovering or people who had had cancer, and they borrowed that CD, and they were so incensed by the thought that they had any resentments, they threw it out. I don't have that CD anymore. where it's gone. But yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Because we don't necessarily know what we're holding on to. And that's not, it's because our subconscious, it's things that are held there that we're not aware of. So ask yourself, have you begun or have you forgiven everyone and everything from your past? Do you value being free of your past more than you value being right? Yeah, so that's the fifth key. And again, that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Just because I couldn't see what I was holding on to didn't mean it wasn't there. And the sixth key is the key of gratitude. That key is the blessing and praising the good in our life. The language of the universe is emotion. Our feelings have great power, and that feeling of gratitude is one of the strongest affirmative spiritual energy that we have at our command. And you can even be grateful for things that haven't yet come into your life. In fact, that way does focus your creative energy and have it bear fruit. David Owen Ritz calls it proactive gratitude. So do you take time daily to notice all the good in your life? Do you praise the good with your thoughts, words, and actions? Do you share your good as an expression of your gratitude? If so, you've got the sixth key. So let's just review. You've got the keys that we've talked about is make a commitment, hold the vision, know the truth, circulate the good, forgive the past, and live with gratitude. So with these keys, you'll find yourself living in the natural flow of abundance. When you live in the flow, you become part of that natural order of creation. Those 6 days, it was said God created the world. On the 7th, he rested and called it good. You can rest and call it good. So you can claim with conviction, I am abundance. Do you want to say that with me? I am abundance. I am abundance. And one more time, I am abundance. And always remember, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Ros. I'm glad that this is being recorded. The words of wisdom in that were just so wonderful. As you said, nothing we haven't heard before, but it's good to just have it again because we tend to forget. That was amazing. And I loved the line, the language of the universe is emotion. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Would you give Ros another round of applause, please?
Thank you.
And this has put us into the mood for our next